welcome to another fun-filled edition of Hashtag Football Friday right here on SportsZone Chicago. We're live and in living color. I'm Sid the Kid. That's me. That's Lakeena McGee over there. That is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena McGee on the IG if I can talk and get it out.
Make sure you download that SportsZone Chicago app. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. There we go. And also, you can catch our other 5 live shows throughout the week. If you happen to miss them, you can watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that SportsZone Chicago app today. Speaking of SportsZone Chicago, you can always follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, please find SportsZone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to subscribe to our podcast, Second City Sports, the audio version, you can do so by subscribing to War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including our iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes on those podcast platforms. You ready? WARR on Anchor. Once again, that's War on Anchor. You can also follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. One more again, as you young folks would say, you can find War Media at WAR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. You have any definite opinions during our topics, during our 2-hour extravaganza, we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You can always go to SportsZone Chicago's Facebook page or SportsZone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something stupid, I'm giving Lakeena full power to give you fools the beer lane beer boot.
Bye-bye.
I love when she says that. But before we get started, we must remind you that SportsZone Chicago is also available now on Roku TV. That's right. Celebrate with the squad. Get with the program. SportsZone Chicago is now on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku TV, just tap into the sports folder and download SportsZone Chicago that way. If you don't have a Roku TV, that's okay. We know you have a streaming device or 2 or 3 or 4 laying around, iPad, iTouch, iPhone, Chromebook like I'm using right now, or your personal PC. Just download the Roku TV app and access SportsZone Chicago through that avenue. There's no more excuses, so celebrate with the squad. Get with the program. SportsZone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. We're live and on demand 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. All right, Lakeena, let's kick off this Friday edition, this hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports by discussing Chicago baseball. The definition of expectation: a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. A belief that someone will or should achieve something. One prospect of inheritance. Lakeena, I am discussing the 2022 Chicago White Sox after what happened on the South Side earlier this week with the 3-game sweep. Yeah, I know it hurts. It hurts. It hurts White Sox Nation. The Cleveland Guardians now on their way to clinching the 2022 AL Central Division Championship that swept the White Sox, showing that one team is more focused than the other, showing that one team is more determined than the other, and showing one team that is more fundamentally sound than the other. Lakeena, I'm going to save my frustrations for when our girl Christine Manika comes on with us next hour so we can get deeper into this. But Lakeena, I know we've been warning fans all season. I know you checked out a couple weeks ago, and many White Sox fans have checked out a few weeks ago. I get it. But Lakeena, we have all season to discuss this, but what I saw at the end of the game on Monday, then the last 2 nights, it's just been disappointing.
It's one of those things where you thought, okay, Wednesday's game, they came back, they forced it into extras, but unfortunately, it was sort of like all square, and then the Guardians score a 5-er in the 11th, the top of the 11th, and that propelled them to beat the Sox, and that was kind of like the start of what was ahead, unfortunately. And the Guardians ended up sweeping the White Sox. Guys like Hedges and Kwan, and Jose Ramirez, of course. I mean, their guys stepped up. Rosario, all of them. They all stepped up. those guys stepped up. Their pitching actually was really solid. Now they were able to get out of jams. When the Sox were trying to threaten, the Sox, the Guardians pitching staff, the bullpen stepped up and got them out of there. And if you saw last night's game, that was it was more or less Wednesday's game where the Sox got pummeled 8-2. That actually was a microcosm of the Sox season right there in that one game. Okada with a fielding error, which led to Cleveland. You have a couple of big innings, and then everything else started transpiring, and everything kind of went haywire. So, look, the Sox. I don't want to get into it because we got other better stuff to talk about. But the Sox got. I don't want to say the Sox got exactly what they deserve, but look, I checked out like about a couple of months ago, like before the All-Star break, because everybody kept saying, "Oh, you know what? You know what? Oh, you know what? Look, Minnesota, they're not gonna go. They're not gonna go, far. You can beat Minnesota." I tried to tell folks and said, "You remember this? Look, there's a team called the Guardians that got a really good, sort of, young staff of a young core of players right there. Oh, remember those guys? Don't ignore them." And then, sure enough, the Guardians came in and just, passed by, like, "Oh, hello." So, I think the elimination number is down to like 5. I know Lance Lynn had some comments after Wednesday's game, and you guys have played like poopy. Yeah, you guys actually did. Like I said, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but because there's a couple of swear words there because Lance we were talking about. But yeah, so I don't know what else to tell you guys. Look, but you were warned. Just saying.
Yeah, we warned you guys, especially, I was trying to jump on that Cleveland bandwagon after they beat Minnesota, the 2 series in late June, early July. Of course, they went on the struggle train, but they picked it up right after the All-Star break, while the Twins faltered and the White Sox, they eventually faltered too. It just took them a little bit longer to complete that part of the mission. But I want to discuss the Cleveland Guardians for a minute. One, the White Sox finished the season 7-12 against them. Obviously, that's not going to cut it. Number 2, they have some gamers over there. You talk about Jose Ramirez. You talk about Ahmed Rosario, but their leadoff hitter Stephen Kwan.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's, if not the best, one of the best, is not the best in baseball in terms of leading off. The team does not have a lot of power, but they have a lot of speed. They remind me of a slightly above average Tampa Bay Rays team. And that's what the Sox try to play like. But you don't have that personnel, so it's not going to work.
Someone gets on base, and that's what leads to sort of like that thing where it kind of like opens up the offense for them. So he's one of the reasons. He's probably one of the unsung heroes of that Guardians squad. And he's one of the reasons why Cleveland's what they are right now. And I believe the elimination number is 5, down to 5 for the Sox. So the Guardians have to play they go on the road still, consider the road trip. They play the Rangers, I should say. So they should be able to at least win 2 out of 3 there. The Sox go to Detroit. So okay.
Yeah, so let's not forget for Cleveland, they also have Josh Naylor, who's been a thorn on the White Sox backside all year. Remember May 9th? Exactly. And you saw what he did on Monday. Not on Monday, but Tuesday's game. Tuesday's game. Ridiculous. But I'm with our guy Herb Lawrence from CHGO Sports in Chicago, who covers the White Sox, friend of the show. We'll have him on this program again soon. But he says that, and I agree with him about the Guardians. You really want to hate this team, but you can't.
No, they can't.
You gotta respect it for the way they play the game. You gotta give manager Terry Francona credit for that. I know their ownership refuses to spend. They did not make not one single move at the trade deadline. They weren't supposed to win this year.
Nope.
But Terry Francona identified his personnel on his squad. He had them buy into a brand of baseball he wanted them to play. They're getting it done, and they're gonna cause some problems come playoff time.
Well, look, this isn't Francona's first rodeo, so he was able to sort of see and look. He gets the best out of his guys. That's why he's one of the best managers, current managers of the last 20 or 30 years, because he's able to get the best of the guys that they got. And look, like you said, the owner wasn't going to spend. They didn't do anything at the trade deadline, but look, they used what they got, and look where they're at now. So, this is Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Lakeena McGee, Cindy Brown with you. All right, so let's go up north because that's the Sox thing. I'm glad we only got 2 more weeks of this. So, but on the flip side, though, the Cubs they've won 3 in a row. They win 2 out of 3 against the Marlins, then they win the opener against the Pirates. And Hayden Wesneski, I hope I'm getting his name right, had a quality start. He pitched 13 innings with 13 strikeouts. Quality start that led them in that win against the Pirates. They needed the bullpen help a little bit to kind of there, but just an immaculate inning. Like I think he had like there was like 3 straight outs after like 6 strikes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why immaculate inning. That's probably one of the rarities that happens. So he gets a second win of the season. You love to see stories like this. Guys come in and kind of like get their feet wet in the majors, and then go to help their team win. And look, the March to 70 is on. They're at 65 and 85. They're continuing their series against the Pirates through the weekend. What do you think about how they've been doing?
First of all, during that Marlins series, you have guys like Hermosillo and Christopher Morel's bat is finally starting to wake up. I know he's not going to win NL Rookie of the Year, but that's besides the point. But as we said before, when the Cubs score runs, they score them in bunches. And with their bullpen, has been MIA all year. It's hot 1 minute, cold the next. But playing against these lesser teams like the Marlins and now the Pirates, starting with that series last night, you are seeing what this Cubs team is made of. The question is, as we're going to keep asking this until the offseason begins, what will GM Jed Hoyer going to do? Will he bring in some veteran guys to make the team competitive next year? We'll see. You still have some young guys that you can build around, especially with the pitching. Looks like that's what they going to start with their foundation first. But some of the everyday players, I know they cut Frank Schradell. Thank goodness he wasn't doing anything anyway. But some of the key young guys, you still have to find out who they are. And maybe a couple of them you could pawn off in a deal during the offseason. But you still had to give manager David Ross credit for getting these guys up in playing. It's easy to do that when you're not in the pennant race, but you tell the guys who are playing, they really want to play. We always say character reveals itself when times are down. Hey, the Cubs are having fun. There's no expectation. You could tell that guys are really playing hard. As you mentioned, Lakeena, on our last show on Monday, they're really doing this without a couple of key guys, including Wilson Contreras, which we're unfortunately watching his final days in the Cubs uniform.
Yeah, I think that's what you want. I mean, yeah, the pressure's off. They've been eliminated for a playoff contention for like the last 3 months, but this is what you want from your team, especially if you're trying to up and coming, guys that are trying to kind of like, fight for their spots next year, trying to, be right there. Seeing guys like Wisniewski, come in and pitch with the way he's been pitching. Morel, finally getting back to kind of like he's been cold the last couple of months, but he's starting to heat up again. Seeing, guys like Ian Happ, this could be like one of the last days we see him in the Cubs uniform. Seeing other guys like that. Sort of, this is like Velasquez has been really solid too. He was great in that Marlins series. So it's sort of one of those days where you're kind of like, you know what? You sort of have to give them credit, give David Ross credit, give this team credit. Now, again, if you're the future, I mean, I think I would rather be I know this might sound weird, but I think I would rather be the Cubs and the White Sox because you don't know what the White Sox, are going to be doing after the off season. So a lot of these guys could be gone. So I think if I have to think about the future, the next 2-3 years, I think I would rather be a Cubs fan than a White Sox fan.
But here's the thing: what will Jed Hoyer do this offseason? Well, because the Cubs have money, are they going to stick with the plan, or are they going to fall under the pressure of many of the fans' expectations, saying, "Well, you got to go get some veterans," because empty seats at Wrigley Field cannot continue much longer. So they are the crossroads as well. I know on paper it looks like they have a brighter future than the Sox, but let's see if they can stick with the plan or try to make this a competitive team. They're the crossroads right now.
Our buddy Vernon Fairley said, "Rest in peace to the 2022 White Sox campaign."
Yeah, I know.
Got the taps going. I get the taps going. But let's talk about baseball, like nationally. Said, and we'll probably finish this up as we go to break. But it's sort of the Yankees. Aaron Judge, the chase is 62. I know Roger Maris's family is there. They're at the continue their series against the Red Sox. If you saw it last night, it's sort of it was sort of interesting, but because it was really that Judge, his home run, it was really close. It just hit the just like on the other side of the foul pole. So unfortunately, that didn't that didn't he could get there. But Josh Donaldson came in and hit the walk off for RBI, so that sort of propelled them there. They've already now clinched a playoff spot and trying to sort of put some distance between the Blue Jays and the Rays. Some of the other ones, of course, the Mets, they clinched a playoff berth. So the Braves, they're still battling out for the NL East, I should say. So that could come down to the last week and a half of the season. The Cardinals starting to pull away. Of course, Albert Pujols closer, getting closer. Not at 700 yet, but he's getting close. And some of the other things that are happening. What caught your eye this week in MLB?
Even though they won yesterday, your Seattle Mariners, they struggled in Oakland this week. The Oakland's
Yeah.
been a silent painter on their side this season.
Yeah, they have, and that's not. Yeah, that's. I was that really like hurt them a lot. So and Baltimore, I think they may have enough just to sort of hold off Baltimore. But look,
Hmm.
Baltimore, they're trying to hang in there. But like I said, it looks like the game's just right there for them at this point. The Blue Jays and the Rays are I think they're going to be battling out to see who will have to play. Maybe Minnesota. I guess how the seeds go. I guess is going to be like whoever gets it the wild card team will face like the the
Yeah,
lowest
so
record
three
in the
and yeah,
division.
the 3 and 6. We talked about this before we went on there. It's the first two seeds will get buys in the wild card round. The number 3 seed right now in the American League is Cleveland because there will be division champions. They'll have to host Seattle if Seattle
Mhm.
finishes number 6. And so as we talked about before we went on there, too bad that series is not a 5-game series or an ALCS because those two teams are. I know Seattle had a minor struggle early this week, but those two teams, if you're Houston, if you're especially the Yankees, because I think
Mhm.
Houston's the best team in the AL. But if you're the Yankees and some of these other teams, Toronto and Tampa, I do not want to play Cleveland right now. And I sure as hell don't want to play Seattle right now because both those teams have great pitching, starting pitching, and great bullpens, and that's what wins you games in the playoffs. It's because you
Absolutely.
know as well as I do, runs come at a premium during the playoffs.
Absolutely. And of course the NL, that's where it really gets interesting. Of course, Atlanta, they've already clinched with we'll see where they're at. Will they win the
Mhm.
division? Will they get one of the wild cards? So, San Diego, they're still a half game up on Philly, who are two and a
They've been
half.
hot lately.
Yeah, they have. And and the White Sox face them next week too. So that's gonna be
They'll probably pop in champagne, clinching a playoff spot, rubbing it in the Sox faces.
well, that would be interesting. Manny Machado, that might be interesting.
Go
The
on.
right? I
Take
mean,
your $250 million and shove it.
right? The Phillies, of course, they win that opener against Atlanta, keeping trying to keep pace in that last wild card spot because Milwaukee's been kind of been breathing down their necks. So
Mhm.
this last week and a half, this is going to be sort of one of those things where Sid, there's going to be a lot of maneuver. There's going to be a lot of push pulling. So these last 12 games for some of these teams, or I guess depending on 12, 13 games, I guess depending on how how your schedule is. I mean, this is going to get down to the wire. You can't afford to make any mistakes as we get closer and closer, especially if you're right there in that wild card chase.
Yeah, especially with the wild card chase, teams are positioning, making moves, and sure, some of the teams they want to admit it publicly. We don't want to face this team or that team in the wild card round, or if we get to the ALDS. And so, like I said, position is very important, and it's very important also to play your best baseball going into the playoffs. So, they say 12, 13 games remaining. Let's see what happens. Who steps up? Who separates themselves from the rest of the pack?
Going into that scheduling. Speaking of, I'm glad you said that, Sid. Nice little segue there as we finish up the baseball, as we get to break. Of course, the Cubs and the Pirates. We talked about that. Milwaukee and Cincinnati. Trying to keep pace in the NL wild card race. The Brewers are Washington and Miami. They got Atlanta and Philadelphia. Of course, Philadelphia won the first game of that 4-gamer, and then Boston, New York. They continue their series. It'll be on Apple TV Plus, and of course, Michael K is not going to do that game, but apparently, I guess ESPN is going to be doing a lot of live, and Fox is going to be doing a lot of live look-ins. So I guess that's
Mhm.
how that's going to work. I think our buddy Russ Dorsey is going to be there too, I believe. So we might be seeing history. We'll see. Houston and Baltimore. Houston, they're still trying to get to that top spot in the AL,
Mhm.
so they still got a lot to play for. And Baltimore trying to keep pace there. Toronto and Tampa, they continue their series. Cleveland and Texas, like we said earlier,
Mhm.
Cleveland, they're in the driver's seat in the AL Central, and the Angels and the Twins. So Twins trying to keep their very slim playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, finish out the rest of the schedule for this weekend. San Diego at Colorado. There's a bigger series, obviously, for San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle at Kansas City. Kansas City fired their player
Mm-hmm.
personnel who was in charge earlier this week. Maybe that's the person the White Sox should look at. We'll get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Mets at Oakland tonight. Hopefully, they don't have another stumble against another bad team like they did against the Cubs
Mm.
over a week and a half ago. San Francisco, Arizona. And the second game of that Apple TV Plus doubleheader tonight, as Albert Pujols tries to chase history, it's the St. Louis Cardinals at Dodger Stadium to take on the Dodgers.
could be a playoff preview. We'll see whether
Mhm.
it's the NLDS or the NLCS. We'll see.
It was a
what
great
happens.
wild card game last year.
Yes, it was.
between
That was
these
a
two teams.
really good. Dodgers won it in like about 11 innings.
Mhm.
Of course, Tigers and Cubs. I mean, Tigers and White Sox. I should say that's the ESPN Plus game. We're sorry for all you, for all of us nationally. St. Louis and the Dodgers will be on ESPN Plus, and of course, the Red Sox and Yankees will be Sunday Night Baseball. And I'm sure the ESPN folks are hoping that Aaron Judge holds off on the 60-second home run. Wait till they start showing the game as well.
Yeah. Now, this is probably one of the few times that ESPN Sunday Night Baseball could potentially beat out the NFL. Potentially.
Maybe. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that is your schedule for this penultimate week of the MLB regular season.
Week 3 of the college football season kicked off yesterday. We have a few games tonight. Rest of the slate tomorrow. We'll preview the key games from the world of the college pigskin, and we'll give you our quick review of last night's Thursday night football contest between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, and much more. I'm Sidney Brown. That's Lakeena McGee. You're listening to the hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports, live in 11 color right here on SportsZone Chicago.
The Earth is 70% water. And 30% land. But the entire sky belongs to us.
Everybody in a work zone is someone somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
Here's my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Welcome back to hashtag Football Friday, the edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena McGee on the IG.
And we have less than 90 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, you can always go to SportsZone Chicago's Facebook page or SportsZone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. This is Lakeena's favorite time of the week during the football season. It is time for week 3 from the world of the college pigskin. But first, before we preview Saturday's big games, let's review a couple of games that took place last night. West Virginia gets by Virginia Tech 33-10 for the West Virginia Mountaineers. JT Daniels, 20 of 30 for 203 yards and the score.
Yeah, nice win for them. And unfortunately, Virginia Tech, they're going through a rebuild. So not a big surprise that these two rivals, it's been one-sided. So nice win for West Virginia. They're 3-1, and should be. They got a couple interesting games coming up. We'll get to that next week. Now, Illinois, doing what you're supposed to do when you're much better to a team you're much better than. They shut out UT Chattanooga 31-0, and a little bit of history was made with Illinois. Of course, Tommy DeVito threw for 329 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Chase Brown had 108 yards and a touchdown. And Pat Bryant and Isaiah Williams each had a touchdown apiece, a receiving touchdown. And also, too, they both had over 100 receiving yards. Bryant had 112 and Williams had 103. I think that's the first time ever that in the program's history that Illinois had a 100-yard rusher and not one but 200-yard receivers in the same game. So that's crazy when you think about it. Some of the rich history the Illini's had, but they're 3-1 right now and looking pretty good. Getting hopefully they'll be bowl bound. We'll see once they start Big Ten play.
Yeah, that's what I said. I want to see how Illinois plays when the Big Ten season starts in a couple of weeks. And one more final from last night. Coastal Carolina gets by Georgia State 41-24. Now, here are some of the big games you should watch for tomorrow at 11 a.m. on ESPN Plus and SEC Network Plus. Number 1, Georgia, the defending national champs, will host Kent State. Georgia's favored by 45. That should be no problem. At 11 o'clock at Central Standard Time on Fox, big news Saturday is the number 4 Michigan at the Big House hosting the 3-0 Maryland Terrapins. Lakeena, call me crazy, but I didn't see this hot stuff from Maryland coming.
Yeah, I mean, the Maryland's been playing pretty well. They play Buffalo, Charlotte, and SMU, so it's not it's not the SMU game. I mean, the first 2 opponents, no shade, but they not exactly sort of. This is probably kind of where a lot of people in Maryland thought that they would be. So I don't think anybody. Tallulah Tagovailoa, that's Tua's kid brother, has been playing very well for them. Already has 6 touchdown passes so far this season. It'll be interesting. I'm not saying that Michigan should be on upset alert, but I think they're not going to look past this game. I think, like I said, I think that defense of Michigan is on a mission. They've been getting better and better. This might be the first big test for them. So we'll see how they do. And the quarterback carousel continues up in Michigan. So we'll just see how this responds there. Now, at the same time on ABC, this is a big one. So in the ACC, you got Clemson and Wake Forest. So this is going to be very interesting because this could kind of set the tone for the ACC.
Yeah, and also, too, first of all, with Dabo Swinney, he's going to be running out the tunnel again real fast like he's stealing money out of a bank. We'll see about that. But keep your eyes on a couple of players from each team. Will Shipley from Clemson, their star running back, 32 carries. 32 carries, so 249 yards and 6 touchdowns so far this season. And the Demon Dickens, star wide receiver, at Perry, A.T. Perry, 12 catches, 222 yards and a touchdown. He needs to have a big game if they want to pull out the upset at home.
Both defenses, though, I would think that's going to be the key here. Of course, Wake Forest has given up a lot of points. So I think that's going to, their last couple of games, they gave up 36. They literally had to claw their way against Liberty last week. So their defense is going to be sort of the key here. And we'll see. I mean, Clemson's defense is getting better and better too. So it'll be interesting to see which defense steps up here. Central Michigan and Penn State, Big Ten Network. Baylor and Iowa State, that should be an interesting one there. Iowa State lost a tough one last year against Baylor, so I'm sure they're going to be looking for some revenge. This is going to be a very interesting game. They'll be at 11 a.m. on ESPN2.
Yeah, bigger game for Baylor because they're 2-1 already so far this season. Iowa State is at 3-0. I want to go back to the Central Michigan Penn State game for a moment. I know Penn State was coming off a big win at Auburn last week. They favored by 28. Do you worry about a letdown from the Nittany Lions or not yet?
Not yet. I think they should be able to. Central Michigan. I mean, they're okay, but they're not great. So I don't. They're 1-2. Michigan is a Chippewa. Central Michigan is a Chippewa. So I shouldn't be. I'd be worried too much about a letdown for Penn State, but. You never know. I'm sure James Franklin will have his guys ready. At this 11 a.m. game on FS1. No, folks, college basketball season has not started yet. So you still got about a little over a month for that. But Duke and Kansas both undefeated.
Go figure. And Kansas is favored by 7 points.
I mean, no, I don't think anybody saw this coming. I'm a little surprised that game day's not there. But look. It's sort of interesting to see, how all this plays out. I mean, Lance Leopold has been doing a great job rebuilding that, Kansas program. Mike Elko. No one really thought that Duke would be undefeated. Of course, they had that big upset win against Northwestern a couple of weeks ago. So I don't think anybody saw this coming. So we'll see. We'll see who's going to remain undefeated after this game. Go figure.
Yeah. At 1:00 p.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. local time out there on the West Coast on the Pac-12 network, the 3-0 UCLA Bruins, who cannot draw any fans, and it's more than just the heat out there. They'll travel to Boulder, Colorado at Folsom Field to face the Colorado Buffaloes. They are winless on the season at 0-3.
Shouldn't be a problem for UCLA. I know that some people were sort of like wondering how they were celebrating against South Alabama, but they've been doing that like since Chip Kelly's gotten there. So I think people need to kind of slow down on that. But I mean, Colorado, they're going through a rebuild. Carl Durrell, I know that he's they're going through a lot. So this is a team that he used to coach too. So storyline wise, it'll probably be better than the game. I don't think the game will be totally one sided. Now at 2:30, first of the SEC games on CBS. Old rivals, playing against each other. You got Florida, number 20 Florida, and number 11 Tennessee. That should be a fun one down at Neyland Stadium, I should say.
Yeah, remember I was talking to you about Tennessee last week. That crowd was lit at night, and or is that program back? This is going to be another personal test, in my opinion. They're at home. Like you said, two old school rivals in the SEC. I believe their star wide receiver. Jalen Hyatt is going to have a big game. He has 3 receiving touchdowns so far this season off of 267 yards and 18 catches. But in my opinion, I think Tennessee has got to run the football with some consistency, keeping that Gators defense on his heels.
Well, yeah, and I think Anthony Richardson, I know some people in Florida are raised to saying that he shouldn't be the starter since he struggled the last couple of games. But this will probably be a test of how he's really good, because that Tennessee defense is pretty good. So we'll see how this is going to be a big test for both these teams. So this is going to be kind of like the measuring stick of how these teams are going to be throughout the rest of the year. Now, Texas and Texas Tech at that same time on ESPN. That should be an interesting one there. These two teams have had their battles over the years. So this should be very interesting down there in Lubbock.
Yep, and Texas is favored by 7 points. At the same time on the ACC network, Middle Tennessee Texan at 2-1. They'll travel to the U to face the Miami Hurricanes. They're ranked number 25. Miami, as I told you on Monday, Lakeena, very disappointing performance offensively at Texas A&M last Saturday night. They're checking at 2-1. They should be able to win this game. They're a 25.5-point favorite. I want to see better quarterback play out of Miami, especially with Van Dyke. They should be able to rack up some points.
Well, yeah, that Blue Rays team though is actually pretty good. So I'm not saying that Miami should be on upset alert, but I'm saying that don't look past it. But I'm sure they're going to want to make a point after they had a lot of chance to slip away over at Kyle Field last week at A&M. Now Notre Dame and North Carolina at 2:30. This should be an interesting one here down in Chapel Hill. So I'm wondering that this should be an interesting one. Mac Brown against Marcus Freeman. So this should be an interesting game here. That'll be on ABC. This is what I'm looking for here too, Sid, on BTN about that same time. You got Minnesota. A lot of people now they're kind of in the driver's seat. You will perhaps win the Big Ten West. They face Michigan State over at Spartan Stadium at East Lansing. That should be a fun one.
Yeah, Minnesota checks in at 3-0. Michigan State is 2-1. Michigan State lost at Washington State, I believe, last week. So they're coming off a tough loss on the West Coast. Minnesota's been solid so far in this early season. This is the first for both teams in the Big Ten Conference. Watch out for Muhammad Ibrahim for Minnesota. They start running back 67 carries so far, 464 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's going to have a big game to take pressure off that quarterback.
Tanner Morgan for Minnesota also too. This is like the 7th year. He's been there forever, it seems, but probably that's just the Obama administration. That's just a joke. But yeah, he's faced his team before, so I think he knows what to expect. So this shouldn't be a problem. This could go down to the wire up in East Lansing. So that should be a fun one on BTN. That same time on ESPN2, you got Indiana and Sid. That should be an interesting one there. No, again, college hoops has not started yet, so relax.
And this is not the rematch of the '92 national semifinal and the Final Four.
Going all the way back.
Corey Blunt, Calbert Cheney. Let me move on.
Nick Van Exel, yeah, among others.
Yeah, Nick McKnight.
That's it.
Real quick, Lakeena. Real quick. I kid you not, or as young folks would say, no cap. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Nick Van Exel games. I saw it last night.
So
for those of you that are interested on YouTube, look up Nick Van Exel games. There's a Nick Van Exel YouTube channel. Someone created it.
Oh, okay, nice. I hope he gets some royalties from that.
You would think.
Yeah, I'll say on Fox, the big Fox network, 3:00. Oregon and Wazoo, Washington State. That Washington State defense, I've been saying that should be interesting to see how they face against Oregon's offense with Bo Nix. So this should be a fun one over in Pullman, I should say.
Yeah, like I said, it's a Pac-12 rivalry. Oregon had that battle with BYU last week. Of course, Washington State took care of Michigan State. It's a home game for the Cougars. Let's see if they can respond. Oregon, we know they can bring it offensively, especially in the passing game. But let's see who makes the big play defensively, especially if it gets close down the stretch.
Should be interesting there.
Oregon's favored by 6.5.
Okay, I can kind of see that going on there. Northern Illinois has a tough one on ESPN2. They go at Lexington to play Kentucky at 6:00 on ESPN2. So that should be interesting there. SEC matchup here on ESPN. At the same time, we got Arkansas and Texas A&M over. This is going to be actually interesting. This is actually going to be at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. So this is like old Southwest Conference rivals facing each other. So
it's basically, even though it could be a home game for Texas A&M, that's really a neutral site game.
Yeah, it's not actually not that far from where the University of Arkansas is.
That's what I'm saying. That's a neutral site game.
Yeah, so that's like I said, old Southwest Conference rivals. You remember that conference, Sid, facing each other. That should be a fun one over at Jerry's World. KJ Jefferson, the guy that can both pass and run the ball too for Arkansas. He's the QB. Also, probably one of the better runbacks. He was like the reason why, I guess, Devin Kane, I think that's how you say his name. He kind of kept Miami's offense off the field. He kind of kept the chains moving for the Aggies last Saturday. So this should be a fun one down there over at Jerry's World.
Yeah, it could be a letdown for Texas A&M after beating Miami the way they did in that low-scoring game last Saturday night. But watch out for Aeneas Smith, the star wide receiver from the Aggies. He has 2 touchdowns so far this year, off of 14 catches to 259 total yards.
Iowa, I should say, at Rutgers. Easy for me to say. That's the night game on FS1. Yes, that's easy for me to say. 4-0, for the first time since 2012. Rutgers that's where they're seeking to with this game against Iowa. So Graciano's back at it and over New Jersey, and he's got guys playing well. So this should be interesting.
Yep. You're listening to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago on the hashtag Football Friday, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown as we preview some of the key games in college football for tomorrow's Week 3 action. At 6:00 p.m. on the NFL Network, the Battle of the Sun Belts, the Marshall team. The Marshall team. We are Marshall.
Thundering Herd.
Thundering Herd. Thank you. The Marshall Thundering Herd. They'll take on Troy. Marshall checks in at 2-1. Troy 1-2.
Should be an interesting one there, on NFL Network. Vanderbilt and Alabama. I don't know what the point total is, but I guess
the overall total is 59, and Alabama is favored by 40.5.
Okay, Vanderbilt's undefeated right now, so
they're 3-1.
3-1. I should say they played the extra game, but yeah, take the under. I would say I don't think Alabama's gonna go all the way to around the world with them, but we'll see what happens. The night game on ABC, you got Wisconsin at Ohio State. That should be a fun one over at in Columbus.
Yeah, let's see if Wisconsin can use their running game to their advantage, and let's see if Ohio State can maintain their composure defensively. I want to see CJ Stroud. It's another prime time game for that young man at quarterback for the Buckeyes. Let's see if he responds under the lights.
Should be interesting where they'll be on ABC. That's the night game there. Of course, UConn and NC State. and Miami of Ohio, not Miami of Florida, but these are the Red Hawks of Miami of Ohio in the MAC. They place Northwestern. That's at 6:30 on the Big Ten Network. Hopefully, your guys can get together, City or Wildcats.
My Wildcats now.
I'm just saying, Charlotte and South Carolina, that'll be on ESPNU at the same time. Also, the ultimate game for the Big Ten Network, you got Florida Atlantic and Purdue. Purdue hoping to bounce back from that disappointing loss to Syracuse.
Yeah, they need this game in the worst way. We'll see how Purdue responds, especially Aiden O'Donnell there, the quarterback. He needs to have a better performance. And watch out for that stud wide receiver, Charlie Jones, as well. He has 5 touchdowns already so far in this early season. So Purdue definitely needs a bounce back game. They're favored by 16.5 points.
Okay, they should be able to cover that. Kansas State and Oklahoma. We'll see how Kansas State's mindset is after the disappointing loss at home to Tulane. But I think if you're Oklahoma, you better try and sort of like take it out on them while their defenses are down. That'll be on Fox at 7 o'clock.
And also at 7 o'clock, West Coast football a little bit early for Lakeena. 0-4 New Mexico State. They'll host 1-3 Hawaii.
Well, thankfully that's not going to be on television anywhere, so we won't have to worry about that. Florida State, they host Boston College. That'll be on the ACC network at 7 o'clock. That should be a fun one. USC and Oregon State. That's at 8:30 on the Pac-12 network. Oregon State, they're 3-0 as well, so I think SC should be on upset alert. I mean, Oregon State actually they got a pretty good squad over there, and I'm sure the place is gonna be rocking over there at Corvallis, so that should be a fun one too. Of course, you guys can check that out on the Pac-12 network.
Yep, it's a home game for Oregon State. The Beavers are 6-point underdogs.
Okay. Wyoming and BYU, that's at 9:15. We're going to the late games here.
Yeah, you're watching that one.
Yeah, on ESPN2. That should be a fun one, of course. But BYU coming off that loss to Oregon. Wyoming, they're at 3-1 as well. 3-1, so that should be an interesting one over there at Provo. So that should be a fun one. And Utah and Arizona State on ESPN. I'm sure they're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that's going to be going on, because apparently, I guess, according to some rumors, that Herb Edwards, of course, now the former head coach over at Arizona State, apparently his assistants were actually allegedly telling the other teams their game plan. So that was like, okay.
Was this the 1970s or the 80s?
That kind of threw me off this morning. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Sun Devils respond after all of that. They're going to be having a very tough test against Utah. So we'll see how they respond.
And wrapping up the schedule for tomorrow, 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on FS1. 1-1 Stanford. The Cardinal will travel to Husky Stadium to take on the number 18 ranked team in the country, the Washington Huskies. And at the same time on CBS Sports Network, 1-2 Western Michigan will travel to the West Coast to face San Jose State. They're 1-1.
Oh, that should be a fun one. Going back to that Stanford Washington game, Washington coming off that big win against Michigan State. So this should be an interesting game between these two rival schools in the Pac-10/Pac-12. They got some great battles over the years, so we'll see what happens in this rivalry for this year.
All right, so there's your schedule for tomorrow from the world of college football. You're listening to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you as we wrap up our number 1. Last night, Lakeena, week 3 of the NFL season kicked off last night with the Pittsburgh Steelers struggling again, losing to the Cleveland Browns by double digits. I had a chance to check out some of that game last night. It was entertaining at times. It was boring at times, but Cleveland found a way to pull it out. Mitchell Trubisky, as we told you, by the 4th or 5th game, if he's not getting the job done, I think you'll see Kenny Pickett in there. I know there's many Pittsburgh Steelers fans that are complaining already about him. He didn't have his best game last night, but I don't think he was the only reason why Pittsburgh lost it either. They're just not good all around. I know JT Watt didn't play last night either, but Pittsburgh's just not a good team right now. As Lakeena is having issues with her audio, hopefully we'll get her back in just a moment as you're listening to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. I am Sydney Brown as I take you through the rest of this hour. The Browns did beat the Steelers by the score of 29-12 last night, and the Cleveland Browns came alive in the fourth quarter, scoring 13 of the 16 points. And Jacoby Brissett did enough for the Browns to win last night. And take a look at the numbers on the flip side first for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mitchell Trubisky, 20 of 32, 207 yards, and no touchdowns, but no interceptions either. He was sacked 3 times, and his quarterback rating was an 81.1. As I said, he didn't have the numbers didn't look great, but he wasn't the sole reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers lost that game last night. In the running back department, this is where they struggled. Najee Harris, 15 carries for 56 yards. He did score a touchdown early in the game, but Pittsburgh forgot about him, in my opinion, going down the stretch to secure that game for the Steelers. So the running game, as Pittsburgh has leaned on that for years, they didn't lean into that after the first half last night. In the receiving department, Deontay Johnson was the only one that stood out. 8 catches for 84 yards. As long as catch was 16 yards, he was targeted 11 times. And on defense, they did create a couple of turnovers, but I think it was a little bit too late for Pittsburgh, especially after Cleveland got going in the fourth quarter, scoring 13 unanswered points. And you had to have your healthy players on defense play up to their part. And Pittsburgh didn't have that last night. And so Jacoby Brissett and company did the job for the Cleveland Browns. So speaking of Jacoby Brissett, so we take a look at his numbers. He was 21 of 31 for 220 yards. He did have 2 big touchdown passes, including the first one to Amari Cooper in the first quarter. It was a one heck of a catch in the back of the end zone by Mr. Cooper. He was acquired from the Dallas Cowboys during the offseason. And so right now he is paying huge dividends for the Cleveland Browns. In the running department, Kareem Hunt, 12 carries, 47 yards, no touchdowns, but Nick Chubb was the big story for the Browns out of their backfield. 23 carries, for 113 yards and a touchdown pass. Amari Cooper, as I mentioned, 7 catches over 100 yards in the score. David Njoku, their big tight end, who struggled the last couple of years, he had a big game last night. 9 catches for 89 yards in the score. And Donovan Peoples-Jones only had 1 catch for 10 yards. So the Cleveland Browns did enough to win last night. They had a bad loss last week, giving up all those points to the Jets in the last 3 minutes of that game. So they had to erase the bad taste out of their mouth. So Cleveland goes to 2-1 on the season, while Pittsburgh drops to 1-2. And so that was what happened last night in Thursday Night Football. Hour number 1 is in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead. As you're listening to the hashtag Football Friday on Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. When we return, Mr. Chandler Jones, NBC2 sports anchor and reporter, will join us to preview the Houston Texans taking on our Chicago Bears in Week 3 on the Lakefront coming up this Sunday. And we'll also have Miss Christine the Queen Manika with her Week 3 NFL picks. You're listening to Second City Sports, live in your living color on the hashtag Football Friday edition. I'm Sid. You're listening to SportsZone Chicago.
The Earth is 70% water. And 30% land. But the entire sky belongs to us.
Everybody in a work zone is someone somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
Here's my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the hashtag Football Friday edition, real live and in living color, right here on SportsZone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
Sid mentions Mitch Trubisky, but yeah, I'm the one that gets kicked out of here. You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena_McGee on the IG.
And if you have any questions or comments, especially for our next guest, as we get into our preview between the Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears, you can always go to SportsZone Chicago's Facebook page or SportsZone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. And also, don't forget that you can also catch SportsZone Chicago now available on Roku TV. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. SportsZone Chicago is now on Roku TV, available for you live and on demand 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. Let's not waste any time, Lakeena, as we kick up hour number 2 of hashtag Football Friday by previewing our Monsters of the Midway. They'll be playing in their second home game of the season. They'll host the Houston Texans in the return of former Bears head coach Lovie Smith. To preview that game and a whole lot more, let's bring in NBC2's sports anchor and reporter from down south in the state of Texas. Here comes our man, Mr. Chancellor Johnson. Chance, welcome to our program. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem. Before we break down the game, Chance, talk to us about what you've seen from the Houston Texans so far this season. They're 0-1-1. They finished the tie on opening day. Last week, they had a chance to pull off the upset on paper. I'm using air quotes here for those of you just listening. They were in that game. I watched the majority of that game via this computer screen against the Denver Broncos. They made Russell Wilson look like a pedestrian. Talk to us about how the Houston Texans look from your perspective this year. They're much similar than what our Chicago Bears are, what they look through the first 2 games this year.
Yeah, guys. So for me, covering the team now, throughout the offseason and coming through the first couple of weeks of the season, I would say the mood around the team right now is a little bit disappointing because they felt like in their first 2 weeks, both games could have been won. Obviously, they were up 20-3 against the Indianapolis Colts in their home and season opener, and they gave up 17 points, then went into overtime. And I'm not sure how much was talked about outside of Indianapolis and Houston, but it was a controversial call by Lovie Smith late in that game. In overtime with about 30 seconds left when they had the ball on the Indianapolis Colts side of the field, he elected to punt it, essentially saying we'll play for a tie here instead of going for it late in that ball game. So, of course, we now know they ended that game with a tie. And then last week against the Denver Broncos, they felt like they played at least well enough defense to win that game, but offensively they didn't show up, and the offense pretty much let them down for a second straight week, and so then they ended up losing that game. That game really ended up being defined by a player too. They had Brandon Cooks. Davis Mills had Brandon Cooks open in the end zone. Mm-hmm. He threw a low pass, and Brandon Cooks ultimately he touched it, but he dropped it. And then later on in that game, Russell Wilson connected with this tight end, and that was the difference in the game by 1 touchdown. So in both games, the Texans were right there, and right now they're kind of an angry group right now because they feel like they could have a better record than what they have right now.
It's interesting you say that, Chance, because we saw, all of us up here saw that game. It was sort of like weird that this team could easily be 2-0 right now. How great it is, certain parameters had not changed. Now, Davis Mills is sort of an interesting cat because no one really thought that he would probably be the starter of an NFL team a couple of years ago. But his progression, he's still making a few mistakes, but he's actually been getting a little bit better. So what have you seen so far from him this season?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, right now, Davis Mills, at least in my opinion, I feel like he's taken a step back from last year. I think in his rookie year, I would argue, and I know some people in Chicago might disagree, I would argue he had, if not the best, the second best rookie season of all the guys. I don't think most people would agree with Mac Jones, but I think he had a really good rookie season. And I think he made a lot of throws, and there was a lot of people who left at the end of this year saying, hey, the Texans might have a guy in Davis Mills. It's still to be determined, but at least give him the full year to show that. And then the offseason came. Everybody was saying the right things. Now, this time around, this offseason, it was his team, right? Deshaun Watson, that had already passed. They decided to ultimately move on. We now know he's, of course, with the Cleveland Browns. There's no Tyrod Taylor. Like, he was the guy. The general manager said it. The head coach, Lovie Smith, he had completely backed him. And through these first 2 weeks and through the preseason, he just really hasn't really shown a ton. The biggest knock on Davis Mills is his ability to push the ball down the field. And for me, my biggest argument is when you look around the AFC, you look at all these different quarterbacks, just take a look at the list, right? You can start at the top with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, the guy you just traded from Houston, Deshaun Watson, guys that can go make plays, guys that can make all the throws. So far, Davis Mills hasn't shown that. And in the first game with the Indianapolis Colts, the offense sputtered. Like, the defense did their part as best well as they could. They contained Jonathan Taylor the best you can with JT there before ultimately he ended up getting loose and the Colts made some plays down the field. But the Texans offense had opportunities to put them away last week. It's been a big talking point. The Texans did not score a touchdown, and they had opportunities. And part of that rests on the shoulders of Davis Mills, the quarterback, the guy that they want. They want to see if he can be the guy of the future. He has not shown that through these first 2 games. The Colts, they have a good defense, and so do the Broncos, but some of the throws just aren't there. And so I think, over the next couple of weeks, it's time to see the offense get moving and get going. And Lovie Smith has talked about that, the offensive coordinator Pep Hamilton as well. It also starts with the run game. They really like Dameon Pierce. And the first week, it was a little bit of a mixed bag with Rex Burkhead. But last week, against the Broncos, Pierce got more of those carries. So I think it starts with their run game, and then they try to get into some more play action. But you will see a little bit of that sophomore class battle between Justin Fields and Davis Mills. I'm really excited to see that matchup this week at Soldier Field.
Chance Johnson, the sports anchor reporter for NBC2 in Houston, is joining us here on the Hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. Sid and Lakeena previewing Texans and Bears coming up this Sunday from the lakefront. Chance, let's go back to that Texans defense. The Texans have 5 sacks in total as a team so far this year. Jerry Hughes has 2 of them. He also leads the team in interceptions with 1. If you're a Bears fan, like I am, Chance, which other Texans players on that defense should Bears fans be looking for and pay attention to this Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just mentioned it. The vet for the Texans right now is a defensive lineman, Jerry Hughes. He came over from Buffalo and has immediately kind of made his presence felt. In fact, obviously, once again, this is his first year with the Texans, but he was already named the captain of this, one of the captains of this defense. So he's very well respected. He had a really great game in the first week against the Colts, the interception, along with a sack there. And the other couple of names to watch is Jonathan Grenard, another edge rusher. Before Hughes got there, Grenard was kind of the name on the Texans as far as on their pass rush. He finished with 8 sacks, and he believes he can get to double digits this year. And so far through these first 2 games, he's shown why the Texans are so high on him. He's a very good name to watch up front. The other guys on the back end in the secondary is, of course, the number 3 overall pick, Derek Stingley Jr. He had himself a battle last week with Cortland Sutton. Sutton won a number of reps, but Stingley was right there with him. I think if you're a Texans fan, his ability to be out there on an island, which is very hard to do. Sutton is one of the better wide receivers we have in the NFL. And, he was matched up with them mano a mano, and he held his own. Sutton got his, but Derek Stingley made his presence felt, and that's what you want to see from a rookie. And then the Texans really like their second-round pick, Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. The guy plays everywhere. He reminds me a little bit of Tyrann Mathieu a little bit because he can put him anywhere. He lines up in the box. He's not afraid to hit. He'll play in the run game. He can defend in the secondary, of course, in the passing attack. They really like him. So those are the main three names outside of the Jerry Hugheses: Jonathan Gennard, the edge rusher, Derek Stingley Jr., and Jalen Petrie out of Baylor.
How much of the running back will that be sort of the key here? Because, Dameon Pierce, he's the rookie from Florida. I really like him. Of course, Rex Burkhead's still around. People forget about him. So how much of the run game will probably be a factor here, especially because we know Lovie Smith. We know he loves the run game. We know that, from his history here in Chicago. So what about that part of it?
Yeah, I think for the Texans, the run, their offense starts and ends with the run game because they want to do a lot of things out of play action. And right now, I would say there's not enough trust in Davis Mills to just have him go out there and let it rip for 30, 40 passing attempts if they can contain it. Obviously, as the game script changes, you have to adjust, but they really want to run the ball. And they found a guy that they really like in Dameon Pierce in the 4th round, and immediately he came into camp and impressed heavily. He breaks tackles. He runs very hard. And as he describes it, he runs with bad intentions, and you can see that. I think for the Texans, they also want to get their offensive line making more of a push. And guys like Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard, their 2 tackles, have both talked about the need to be better in the run game. And they say, hey, get 3-1 and Dameon Pierce the ball, and they believe that he can make things happen. So the rushing attack will be pivotal. They're hoping that this is the breakout game, but of course, you guys know, and I know it. Actually, I was in Green Bay for the past 2 years. The Bears, they have a really good defensive front, and so they'll need to make a push there if they hope to get Dameon Pierce involved.
Going back to that Texas offense, Chance, of course, you talked about veteran wide receiver Brandon Cooks earlier. He dropped a potential game-winning touchdown last week. But I'm looking on the depth chart. Nico Collins is listed up there. Of course, O.J. Howard, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Assuming that the Texans can have a stable running game, who else needs to step up offensively, especially from a receiving perspective?
Yeah, I would say it has to be Nico Collins because you know what you're going to get out of Brandon Cooks. Cooks is going to get his targets. He's definitely Davis Mills' favorite guy to throw the ball to. But Nico Collins is a guy, they drafted last year. This is his second year, and he's a big-bodied wide receiver, about 6'4". He can make those contested catches. And on paper, he's a nice complement to what Brandon Cooks can do all around the field. We just really haven't seen it a ton through these first couple of games. Now, it's not so much necessarily on Nico. Some of it is just Davis Mills looking for Brandon Cooks, and then he might check on Nico, but ultimately ends up throwing it to the flat and throwing a check down. Mm-hmm. But Collins has made plays before. I think the Texans just want to see more out of it. But Nico Collins is a guy to watch. O.J. Howard has come in as a guy who was waived by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the end of the offseason. And his first week, he had 2 touchdowns. He had the only 2 touchdowns of the season for the Houston Texans offense. And he's looked good. He's provided a veteran presence for that tight end room because the Texans honestly have not gotten a ton out of their tight ends and Brevin Jordan and Pharaoh Brown. So they want to see a little bit more out of that. But another guy to watch is Chris Conley. He's a guy who's really kind of floated under the radar. Wasn't really talked about a ton. And it was during the offseason, it was more so like, hey, will Nico Collins make the jump? And he made some nice plays in the preseason. But then the season started, and outside of Brandon Cooks, it's actually been Chris Conley is a guy who has found a way to get open on crossing routes and out routes. And Davis Mills has found him, and especially on third down, because a lot of the attention in passing downs does go to Brandon Cooks. And here comes Chris Conley. When they need to make a play, he's been there for them. So Nico Collins and Chris Conley are the 2 main pass catchers outside of Brandon Cooks.
What's Lovie Smith's mindset going into this game? Of course, he's coming back to Chicago. Of course, he coached here for many years, led them to the Super Bowl. Or we know that Coach Smith kind of keeps everything even keel. So what's his mindset going into this game? Is he kind of like, is he a little anxious? Is he sort of like trying to stay like, calm and cool?
Yeah, definitely. So earlier this week, when we talked to Lovie Smith about that, we asked about, hey, going back to Chicago, the place that he's had the most success in his coaching career, and he downplayed it. He was like, for us, obviously we know what my time meant while I was in Chicago, but as far as I'm concerned, it's just another game on my schedule, even heading back to Chicago. And so, I know he has fond memories, coaching the Bears. How could you not? You went to the Super Bowl with them, right? But as far as he's concerned right now, his team's 0-2. Right, you don't have time to reminisce too much about your old team when you need to find a way to win a football game, and you can make the argument that right now the Bears, out of their first 3 games, the Bears might be their best opportunity to do that, and the Bears might feel the exact same way. Obviously, they have their win, but out of their first 3 games, the Texans might be their best opportunity to pick up a win, and so the Texans, once again, they're kind of pissed off right now heading into this game, feeling like they could have won their first 2 ones.
We're halfway home with Chancellor Johnson, NBC2's Houston sports anchor reporter. He's hanging out with us here on Second City Sports, the hashtag Football Friday edition, live in living color, right here on SportsZone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. We'll take a break from football in just a moment with you, Chance. I want to go to baseball. The Houston Astros, of course, last year they were at the doorstep with Dusty Baker trying to get that World Series title. They came up short against the Atlanta Braves. This year they're trying to fight off the New York Yankees and Aaron Judge and crew and everybody else to try to get home field advantage so they can get back to the World Series. I think, me personally, taking my Chicago White Sox glasses off, I think Houston has a great chance to finally win that World Series for Dusty Baker, but they're going to have some tough competition. Me and Lakeena talked about in the first hour with the Cleveland Guardians, what they did to my White Sox earlier this week. And, of course, you had the Sierra Mariners in your division that, even though they struggled a little bit against Oakland here, but they really come on strong. They're going to break their 21-year drought of not making the playoffs. What do you see from the Houston Astros heading towards the playoffs in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I would say right now for the Houston Astros, in my opinion, they look like the best team in the American League for now. But, of course, you're going to see the postseason and things change. The biggest thing with the Astros is their starting pitching. In the past, it's been more so about their hitters and what they could do offensively, and they still have plenty of firepower. I'm sure you guys – I'm going to tell you guys too much about Yordan Alvarez, what he brings to the table outside of Aaron Judge. He might be, the best power hitter in baseball. You have guys – you look at Jose Altuve, the best leadoff man in baseball. Jeremy Pena has stepped up very nicely with the hole that Carlos Correa left going to the Minnesota Twins. But once again, the statistic with the Astros is their starting pitcher. Justin Verlander, I mean, the guy is pushing 40, and he's very well could be the Cy Young for the American League this year. Framber Valdez, I've been banging his drum for lack of a better word for a while now, because I feel like he's not getting enough credit. So much of the talk about the Astros. Yeah, so much of the talk about the Astros has been on Justin Verlander, but Framber Valdez literally just broke the record for most consecutive quality starts at 25. The guy has been phenomenal, and I think it's because he's not so much of a flashy pitcher. He's not a big strikeout guy, that he doesn't get as much love as he deserves. But as far as I'm concerned, Justin Verlander is 1A in the starting pitching, and Framber Valdez is 1B. They really like what they have in Christian Javier. They like their bullpen as well, and then they feel like they have a really strong bullpen as well as their closer. So I think right now, to me, the Astros have the best roster put together on paper out of the American League. But you have to go and prove it in the playoffs. Now, the thing that I really like about this Astros team is they've been there before. In fact, they just clinched their 5th straight postseason. Their 5th time going to the postseason in the past 6 years. And so, I mean, it's become routine here in Houston after, before they went on this run, they were one of the worst teams in the league, but they finally put it together with the emphasis of losing guys like George Springer and then, Carlos Correa, losing guys like Garrett Cole to New York. They keep finding guys. That's just what they do, and they've been really successful at it. So, in my opinion, at this point in the season, that home field advantage is theirs to lose, and I think the road to the World Series in the American League will now go through the juice box of Minute Maid Park.
I like how you said that their chance. Now, sticking with the Houston theme for a second, since we got you. What about the Rockets? I know they're going to be starting training camp in about a week or two. Got one of the worst records in the league last year. They've added some, great pieces, through the draft and through free agency. What exactly are the expectations for the Rockets this year? Can it at least be respectable? I know they're probably a long way off for being right there for like competing for even like one of the 6 through 10, 7 through 10 spot, I should say. So what is like kind of the mindset is for the Rockets this year?
I would say, covering the Rockets as well, The thing with them is they're okay with being in this kind of rebuild phase and trusting the process, as kind of the Philadelphia Sixers did a little while ago. They know they're not competing, definitely not for a championship. They know they're probably on the outside looking in for the playoffs and probably a play-in. And so last year didn't go to plan. I think their biggest thing is they wanted to be a little bit more competitive, but they were okay with losing because, listen, they got the number 3 overall pick, and they got a guy who at the time was considered the number 1 overall guy, Jabari Smith, ultimately until the Orlando Magic flipped it last minute and went with Paolo Banchero. So they like Jabari Smith as far as being this really big wing who has the numbers of being one of the best big man shooters college basketball has seen in recent history. I mean, the guy was shooting over 40% from 3, but the thing they really like about him is he can guard literally 1 through 5. And so you insert him in the lineup. Obviously, Jalen Green was the big name for the team last year, coming out as a rookie, finishing on the first team all rookie. He had multiple games finishing with 30 points per game. For a guy who was 19 years old, he has a lot of things in his bag already. And then he has kind of a Zach LaVine bounce to him. I mean, the guy is, you saw it in the dunk contest, even though they didn't go in all the time, like you saw his ability to get up to the rim, right? So he now kind of jokingly about it, he said he was going to remedy that this time around in the dunk contest, but they really like what they have in Jalen Green. But the guy who is kind of, I'm going to say floating under the radar, but that maybe not everybody knows about, but I think people should be paying attention to is Alfred Sengun. The guy, he was another first-round pick for them last year in the same class of Jalen Green. He was picked number 15 overall. And he played mostly off the bench last year behind Christian Wood, who they now moved on from. But for another guy who's 19 years old, he has a lot in his skill set. He's kind of a back-to-the-basket guy, but the thing is, he reminds me a lot, like, and this is not hyperbole, a lot of Nikola Jokic to his game. He can, he's great passer, one of the better passing bigs you'll see, especially at that age. Very crafty around the rim, great footwork, nice touch around the rim, and can shoot it. And during the offseason, he's just coming back from the EuroLeague, the EuroLeague playoffs that they had going on, where a lot of the foreign NBA guys are playing, like guys like Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, Luka Doncic, and Sengun was playing with this Turkish team, and he was looking like one of the better players in the league overall. And so now with Christian Wood gone, he'll step in and he'll probably be the primary fire for them. And he's a guy that I think you can run an offense to. Once again, similar to a Jokic, I'm as far as the skill set. I'm not calling him, the back-to-back MVP by any stretch of the means, but he has a lot of that to his game. And so I think for the Rockets, I think they like the position that they're in as far as they have guys that they can identify versus being maybe a different team where it's like you're either middle of the pack and you kind of know you're not going to win the championship, but you're good enough to maybe get into the playoffs, maybe like a Utah Jazz team, last year before they ultimately ended up trading those pieces. So for them, they just really want to see another step in development from their guys. Another thing to watch with the Rockets is, can Kevin Porter Jr. be the guy as the point guard? They like KPJ. Obviously, he was in the Midwest playing with the Cleveland Cavaliers for a bit, and he has plenty of talent. We saw it last year when he scored 50 points. For a guy who's another guy who's 21 years old, barely able to grab a drink. He's another young guy they really like, but the question is, can he lead the team as a point guard? So those are kind of the names to watch for the Rockets this year, and the biggest thing is just focusing on their development overall. And I think the next year is when the Rockets will look to make that step back into contention in the postseason.
We're hanging out with Chance Johnson, NBC2's sports anchor from Houston. He's a sports anchor reporter. He's hanging out with us right here on Second City Sports, the Friday edition. Sid and Lakeena here with you and on SportsZone Chicago. Chance, last question from me. Reading through your bio, you're back home working in Houston where you were born and raised. Tell us how's that experience been for you, and what sparked that passion within you wanting to work in the sports broadcasting industry?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's been a blast to be back here in my hometown of Houston, Texas. I started my first 2 years in Green Bay, Wisconsin, so I'm very familiar with the Bears and the Chicago area. And matter of fact, I will be at the game for the Texans Bears, and I'm really excited about that.
Grab some Garrett's popcorn, Harrow's chicken.
Oh, definitely. We'll talk offline so I can get some recs. I was told a couple of places, a couple of deep dish spots. I was told about a steakhouse that I got to try out. So I'm really excited to head out there. Again, because like I said, being up there in Wisconsin, I took a couple trips to Chicago while I was there. But as far as covering the hometown teams, it's great. When I got to Green Bay, I kind of had to catch up a little bit on like the area, not so much on the Packers because what the Packers represent, but the high school teams and the smaller universities around that area. With Houston, I don't have to. Like I grew up here. It's great. I'm very much closer to family. Most of my family lives in the South, so it was a trick going from Green Bay, a small, really what is a town, to try to fly into some of these cities. But now I'm back home with my family and friends. It's been a great opportunity and really settling in here, having an opportunity to cover, 3 major sports teams, and that's not even including the Houston Cougars, who football-wise, they're relevant in basketball. They might be a top 5 team. Not might be, they will be a top 5 team this year, and they're hosting the Final Four in Houston. So it's a great opportunity that I don't take for granted.
Well, I was going to ask you about last question for me about have those 2 wide receivers from Houston made up yet after that fight, against Kansas last Saturday?
Oh yeah, no, they did. The quick backstory of that was in the Jayhawks game, one of the players felt like he got cheap shotted, so he retaliated, causing a 15-yard, unsportsmanlike penalty. And the captain of the team was getting into it with this guy about you can't do that, and then said, "Man, what you say? Nah, get that." And then that's what was a little back and forth, but they made up. It's all good here in H-Town.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about the men's hoops, they're going to be starting to practice in a few weeks. So Kelvin Sampson, like you said, I mean, this could be a top 5 squad next year. They were really close to going back to the Final Four last year. So what are the expectations? Is it basically Final Four or bust for the men's hoops team?
Yeah, definitely. Kelvin Sampson won't tell you that because he's Kelvin Sampson. But talent-wise, I said top 5. Honestly, in my opinion, they might be top 2. I think North Carolina has a lot of guys returning talent-wise, but with the Houston Cougars, they get a lot of their guys, not a lot of their guys back, but they get a lot of returners in the sense of a guy, right, like Marcus Sasser. Sasser, that's the thing. The Houston Cougars went to an Elite 8 without their best player. I mean, the guy was averaging 20 points a game last year. Mm-hmm. He's a walking bucket, and it's like Kelvin Sampson tell you, their offense is give him the ball and get out the way. And I think when Marcus Sasser went down, not only Marcus Sasser, but another guy in Tremont Mark, he was kind of their Swiss Army knife. And at times, Kelvin Sampson said that he was their best their all-around player. So they get a guy like him back. And then Jamal Shedd, who really kind of broke out during that NCAA tournament, leading that team there without Marcus Sasser. He was being able to do it all for them. If they needed a facilitator, he would help do that with Fabian White, who was now gone, and Kyler Edwards. Yeah. But then when they needed a bucket late in the tournament, he was a guy that they turned to with Jamal Shedd. And so now he can go back to being that facilitator because the ball is going to go to Marcus Sasser.
Yep.
Sasser played well enough in the NBA offseason draft prep to earn a right to be, in the to be drafted, but he decided he wanted to get a little bit up a higher spot, and he knew what they had in this University of Houston team returning, so he ultimately decided to return. So this is a loaded team, and like I said, top 5 was me being on the safe side, but they should be at worst a top 3 team. And obviously, you get into the NCAA tournament, anything happens. But my biggest thing when it comes about the Houston Cougars, one thing I really like about them is even when their shots aren't falling, the 2 things you can always count on: they're going to play the defense, and they're going to rebound the ball.
Yep.
And that always translates at the NCAA tournament level, and that's the reason why we've seen them go far in the tourney the past couple of years.
All right, this has been Chance Johnson, the NBC2 Houston Sports Anchor TV anchor and reporter. Great job, young man. Good luck with your flight. Good luck with having a safe and happy flight to Chicago. Hopefully, Chicago will be another great experience for you. Real quick, what's your final score for Sunday? What's your prediction?
You know what? I hope you guys don't get too mad at me. I do think the Texans pick up their first win on the year. I'm going to go Texans 24. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Texans 24, Bears 21. I think the defense does well on Justin Fields, and the offense is able to get going enough to give them their first win on the season.
All right. Where can people follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter at Chancellor TV. Once again, I cover all the teams, as you guys could probably tell. Yes, right now we're getting ready for Astros postseason as well. Obviously, Texans media day for the Rockets is on Monday, so I fly to Chicago tomorrow. I'll fly back on Sunday, then I have media day for Rockets on Monday. So I'm all over the place with it, but social media at Chancellor TV.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us today. Have a safe flight to Chicago and keep up the great work. And let's do this again soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys for having me.
All right.
All right.
Stay safe,
Thank you.
Chance.
Take care.
All right, so we got that was NBC 2's Chance Johnson. So I think we got a towel off here. We got our girl Christine Manika from KXRB waiting in the wing. So we got a lot to do. We'll talk about with her, of course, not only our picks for week 3 of the NFL, but also to the White Sox and all that stuff that's happening.
Yes, we got a lot to let out on the White Sox.
Oh yeah, among other things too as well. So we're gonna take a really super quick break. So Lakeena McGee, Sydney Brown coming up next. Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Our other girl Christine coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to our last segment of the show, last segment of the week on this hashtag Football Friday. We're live in living color right here on SportsZone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You can follow me on Twitter and IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena_McGee on the IG.
It's time for week 3 of our NFL picks. To help us do that, let's bring on our queen, Miss Christine, the Queen Manika. What's up, Christine from KXRB? Good afternoon to you, young lady. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Before we get to the White Sox and all that hot mess on the South Side, I want to get your thoughts about last week's Bears loss to the Green Bay Packers. I said this to Lakeena on our show on Monday. I know technically it was a blowout according to some people, but unlike in years past, i.e. the last 3 years of Matt Nagy's coaching career, we know the Bears have a long way to go, but at least they weren't embarrassed. They were still in the game, even despite that foolishness on 4th and 1, having Fields in the shotgun. I don't know what the hell that was, but outside of that, and the penalties were starting to pile up. But I will say this, the Bears, they still have a long way to go, but at least they did not embarrass themselves at Lambeau, unlike in years past.
I agree. It wasn't as bad, but after the first quarter, I don't know what was going on with them. Same thing what you said about why would they have Fields bring in the ball in the shotgun position when they have a big guy like David Montgomery that could have just charged right through all of those Packers. So I don't know what that logic was either. I don't have the right answer. I do know that if Coach Eberflus didn't challenge the first down and the touchdown, Chicago media was going to rally hard against him and really condemn him for not challenging those 2 moves. So I'm happy that he did do that, and it wasn't another, okay, we're just going to go on and move on. Because I think he was getting frustrated at the game too, just from looking at his expressions. I know that I saw Ryan Poles up there. He was frustrated at the situation. And it was a frustrating game to look at because nothing seemed to be going right. And another thing that I noticed too, Fields wasn't throwing the ball. It was all a run game for the Bears.
Yep.
Why is that? Could it be because the offense isn't supporting Fields? Could it be because maybe the coaching staff doesn't trust Fields fully with throwing? I don't know. The couple of times he did throw way down the field, he did get intercepted a couple of times. So maybe they want to try to work on more of the mechanics with Fields so he's not so robotic in his moves, if that makes sense. I always point out that Fields likes to only look to one side of the field. He has his back turned towards the other side and just looking in one direction. You thought you only had one blind spot. Well, having your back turns the whole field, that's multiple blind spots right there. So I don't know if they're going to try to get him out of that habit. He did try to look on the whole field, but then he tripped over his 2 feet at one point and got tackled. So I don't know what the solution is. I'm still not fully impressed with Fields yet. And I don't think I'm going to have a full stance on him until the middle towards the end of the season. I'd say if he doesn't show any major improvements, it could be time to get another quarterback for the Bears already and still have Fields on, but maybe not as a starting quarterback, which is what Eberflus and Poles envisioned for him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. That might be Fields on the phone trying to call right now, but let's get to it.
Do you have any advice for me? No, Fields, I don't. I really don't.
Oh, yeah, the whole thing with him having to apologize for what he said. I don't think he had to apologize. That was kind of like a wasted 5 minutes because certain people got upset about it. That was just silly to me.
To me, he did kind of sound a little bit like, I don't want to say he was arrogant because I even listened to it a couple of times, but it was almost like he was making it seem it was more about what he was doing than anybody else on the team, if that makes sense. Like he pointed out, oh, I've been getting up an extra hour a day, putting in the work. Okay, but if you're doing that, how come it's not translating on the field? And if you're doing that, don't you want to get some of your guys involved in order to be a more coherent team and to be that leader? He's still young, no question about it. But if he's going to want to take on that starting quarterback role, I think he needs to learn how to incorporate everybody. Take Tom Brady, for example, when he was with the Patriots and even a little bit after the Patriots with Tampa. He has regular practices with not just himself and his coach, his personal coaches, but he also had Julian Edelman with him. He had Rob Gronkowski. Mike Evans a couple of times now joined him on a couple of practices. And that's the only way that you're going to get better is when the whole team is involved. And it's not just about you. It feels like it's sometimes being the quarterback, but it's a bigger picture in the sense.
Should be interesting though. Now let's get to some of these games. We've got other stuff we want to talk with you about, Christine. So let's get right to it. First up in the noon slate, you got
what's the standings?
Well, you're ahead, Sid, and Christine. You and
I
I are
don't even
battling.
want to talk about the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, well,
You know
I'll
what?
say. Yeah, I wish we could kind of just like wipe the slate clean and start over because I think I only had like one game, right?
What are the standings? Just I'm curious.
Okay, well, Sid's ahead. You and I are battling out for like seconds because I think I'm ahead of you by like one game, but I think that's pretty much about it. So we're not really that far apart. So
This is
still
ridiculous.
very young
The
season.
weeks are ridiculous.
I know. Yeah, thanks a lot, Baltimore. We won't get to that.
Thank you all Raiders for last week. Gee.
Well, I think we all had to laugh at that without any of that Raiders game, but my goodness, all right, NFC South, you got the Saints and the Panthers. Sid, you start this one for us.
The Saints and the Panthers. The Saints are 2.5-point road favorites after their fisticuffs last week against Tampa, blowing that small lead at home. Carolina, they lost to a certainly surprising, quote-unquote, good New York Giants team. Go figure. Christine, your boy Baker Mayfield is 2-7 in his last 9 road games.
Oh, I know.
Carolina's in trouble. The Saints could be in the same boat. Just because they are the better team on paper, I'm going with New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm picking the Saints. They haven't really had a strong running game, but if you've noticed, Baker isn't as quick with his decisions as what he used to be, whether it's because of what happened during the offseason and his confidence got down a little bit more, and maybe he's feeling a little bit more of that pressure to stay on a team and to be that starting quarterback. But exactly what you said, Sid, on paper, I'm going to have to go with the Saints.
Yeah, I'm picking the Saints too, but I'm hoping that Kamara can play. That's probably why the running game hasn't been very good for them so far. So we'll see if he'll be able to play. I don't know. It's just going to be interesting, this game. It's going to be one of those weird games, I have a feeling. But we'll see what happens there. Now, going to the AFC, another noon game on CBS. It'll be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Indianapolis Colts. The now 0-1-1 Indianapolis Colts. And now Shaq Leonard will not be making his debut. He still won't be able to play. That's the word across the wire. So I'll pick the Chiefs, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. But you never know with this team. So I don't know who wants to go next because I'll pick the Colts. The Chiefs, I should say. The Chiefs are playing.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm going with Kansas City. A lot of outlets are saying that this is gonna be an easy win for Kansas City, and that could be right. But the way the last couple of weeks have been going, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. Matt Ryan could be on fire. Jonathan Taylor can finally kick it into high gear. I don't know. Like, the Colts are that team that can surprise you, and maybe this could be another one of those chances where the Chiefs are like, okay, we're going to go easy here a little bit just because they're not having a great season. And who knows, that can probably kick them in the face afterwards. But for now, I'm picking Kansas City.
I'm going with Kansas City as well. Kansas City is a 5.5-point road favorite, and this is the home opener for the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, the Colts defense, as Lakeena has mentioned, has suffered issues so far through the first 2 weeks of the season.
All right, a good one here. A battle of 2-0 teams. You got the Bills coming off a short week, that big win against Tennessee. And, of course, the Dolphins off that comeback win against Baltimore. Thanks a lot, Baltimore. Christine, you start this one for us.
No kidding. Gosh, I mean, look, again, it's been a weird couple of weeks, right? But the running game has been a strong key asset for the Bills so far. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a close game too. I wouldn't be surprised if somehow the Dolphins end up winning this game by inches, not miles, inches. But I think because the Bills are such a solid team and they're a favorite for the Super Bowl this year, I'm going to say the Bills.
I'm going with Buffalo as well. They're a 5-point road favorite. Of course, Miami, they're coming off a high with that comeback win at Baltimore last week. Tua is showing me some things. It's showing me some things, but he's facing a better defense of Buffalo. And, Von Miller and crew, they're going to bring it. Mm-hmm. So Buffalo is going to be a closer game than what people expect, but I'm going with Buffalo at the end.
This could be a trap game for Buffalo because they're going to be traveling. It's going to be on a short week. But I think they'll be ready for this. I think, like I said, they're on a mission. I've been saying it for like the last 2 weeks.
In the heat too.
Yeah, they're gonna be in the heat, so it won't be too bad for them. So I'm gonna pick Buffalo too. Although I think the Dolphins will keep it close for a little bit, but I think Tua will probably throw a pick six, maybe. I don't know, but I like I said, I think Buffalo's on a mission, so I'm gonna pick the Bills, but it's gonna be very close. Interesting one here in NFC North, a pair of 1-1s. You got the Lions and the Vikings. Sid, you start this one.
I'll be watching this game exclusively via this computer screen. The Detroit Lions, of course, picked up their first win of the season, beating the Washington Commanders, holding them off. Minnesota, they were impressive in week 1 against Green Bay, lost last week. Minnesota's a 6-point favorite. Detroit is playing much better. No, I do not have them in the playoffs. No, I do not have them going 500, as I said before the season started. They're going to be a much improved team. Is it because of hard knocks? I don't know. But with that being said, I'm going with the Vikings by 3.
This is going to be my upset for the week. I think the Lions are really an improved team, and I think a lot of people have underestimated them this past season so far. I mean, look at the first week. I mean, that wasn't a football game. That was like I don't know what it was with that score being so high up there, but it's shown me a lot. I think the Vikings have all the elements, right? They have the running back, they have the wide receiver, the one of the great wide receivers in the league right now, one of the best. Then you also have tight ends. You have Adam Thielen. You have all of these key athletes and coaches, except you still have Kirk Cousins. So whether Cousins decides to see the field or not, or it really all depends on how Cousins plays. But I think Detroit's going to surprise a lot of people this season, and I think this includes this game. So I can't believe I'm going to pick the Lions this week, but that's going to be my upset. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is a really close game.
I think it is going to be a close game, but I'm going to pick Minnesota. It's not on prime time. It's going to be during the day, so I think Cookers should be just fine. But
high noon.
Yeah, I'll say it's a noon game. Yeah, so we don't have to worry about that. So I think, like I said, I think Detroit will keep it close, but I think Minnesota will do just enough to pull away late to get their second win of the season. Another pair of 1-1s here on this time on the AFC. You got the Ravens and the Patriots. Christine, you start this one for us.
This could be a slower year for the Patriots, I think. I think this is the year where we're finally starting to see them slow down after seeing them in the playoffs year after year. And again, this could be another close matchup. It's a tough week for the NFL in general. I think Lamar Jackson continues to look great. I expect this trend to go on for the rest of the season, and I think I'm going to go with Baltimore for this one.
For those of you in the Chicagoland area, you'll get to see this game as part of the Fox NFL Sunday doubleheader. Baltimore is 2.5-point favorites on the road. Of course, Baltimore is ticked up from last week. New England, one of the few teams that did it for me. I told you guys they were going to beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, and they did just that. As you said, Christine, Lamar Jackson, he's a man on a mission, and you saw that last week against the Dolphins before his defense gave it up. So with all those intangibles aside, I'm going with Baltimore.
I think for those reasons, I'm also going with Baltimore too, just because I think they're not going to be in a very good mood, and I think J.C. Pierre-Paul, and we'll see. I don't think he's going to be able to play this week, but I think they're going to get a little bit of help from the defensive side. They should be able to slow down that Patriots offense. Hopefully, they won't give up a lot of big plays, but yeah, so it'll be a close one again. But I'm picking the Baltimore too. You're listening to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Lakeena McGee, Cindy Brown, our girl KXRB's Christine Manika. We're doing our Week 3 NFL picks. We're halfway home here. You got the Bengals and the Jets. 0-2. Look, this could be one of those toss-up games. I don't know what the line is, but I'm going against my better judgment. Joe Flacco's found the fountain of youth. Or the Baltimore Ravens Joe Flacco, going to the Super Bowl. So it'll be a close one. I know the Jets have had a lot of injury issues. I think Cincy gets their first win of the season, but again, I might regret that later, so I'm picking Cincy.
I'm going with Cincinnati as well. They're a 6-point road favorite. Remember, they lost to the Jets last year.
Yeah, I had that in mind too. I'm picking Cincinnati. They're hungry for a win, that's for sure.
And plus, Joe Flacco's on my fantasy team. He needs to step up for me. I digress.
Yeah, he does.
I digress.
Yeah, he does. He really does. Pair of 0-2 teams, probably surprisingly 0-2 teams too. I don't think anybody saw this. The Raiders and the Titans. Sid, you start this one.
And how is the Las Vegas Raiders 2-point favorites on the road? They bribed somebody. I don't know. Did you see, as Christine said, did you see the end of overtime like most of America did last week? They gave it up to Arizona. As I told you guys, Tennessee got embarrassed on Monday night in Buffalo. I think they'll play better. I don't like making this pick, but I'm taking my feelings out of it, and I'm putting some logic into this, 100% of it. I'm going with Tennessee.
Here's the thing. Injuries are kind of already a problem for the Titans. And no doubt this is going to be another close game. It's going to go either way. Both teams need a win. But I think after last week, the Raiders wanted just a little bit more. I get it. They have Derrick Henry, the Titans, but I'm picking the Raiders for this one.
Jesus. I have no idea. Oh Jesus. I'll pick Tennessee just because they're at home, but I'm not really confident in that. If we're doing this by confidence picks, this one will probably be at the bottom for me. So I think only because of Derrick Henry, I think they're probably gonna want to get smarts from that loss to Buffalo out of that taste from that loss to Buffalo out of their mouth. So I'm thinking about picking Tennessee again. That's I guess my better judgment, but. It'll be interesting. The last of the new games you got, this time the NFC East, you got the Eagles and the Commanders. Christine, you start this one for us.
I am going to go with the Eagles. Enough said.
The revenge game.
I like that.
Yeah, the revenge game for Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders. I'm going with them. Philadelphia's the 6-point favorite. I think Carson Wentz, this will be one of the few times before he gets hurt that he'll get motivated to play against his former team. I'm gonna try to hop on that bandwagon before he gets hurt. Not wishing that on anybody, but I'm just saying. So I'm going with Washington because they're home and they are a 6-point underdog. Talking about Washington.
Yeah, they're coming off a short week. The Eagles are, but I don't trust Washington. I know their defense, but Carson Wentz, I don't know where I'm going to get with him, so I'm going to pick Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a close one again, like the usually is between these two teams. But I think Philly does enough to win this game. I feel like. All right, a pair of 1-1s here. You got the Jaguars and the Chargers. Chargers, first of the 3:00 games. Okay, Chargers, you got the Jags, traveling cross country. You better not look. You had 10 days off after that loss to the Chiefs. Come on in. Justin Herbert, I'm going to need you to step up. I know you've been a little bit banged up. Hopefully you're all healed up. Defense, I need for you to step up as well, Los Angeles. So it's going to be a close game. I'll give the Jags a little bit of credit there, but I'm picking the Chargers.
I'm picking the Chargers too, keeping it short and sweet.
This is my upset special of the week. I'm going with the Jaguars. You mentioned Justin Herbert is banged up. I know he had a couple extra days because they played last Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
My guy, Keenan Allen at wide receiver, I don't think he's going to play. I know the Chargers defense going to have to step up to keep him in it, but I liked what I saw in Jacksonville last week, so I think they'd be able to keep it going on the road. Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence and company. Give me the Jags. And the Los Angeles Chargers are 7-point home favorites.
Jeez, he's drinking the Trevor Lawrence Kool-Aid.
Well, look, that gives us a chance to catch up, Christine. Don't worry. Hopefully, that'll be the case here. I believe I don't know this. They probably won't get this game. Us here in Chicago, but you got the Rams and the Cardinals. I'll be watching this game via this lovely laptop here. Christine, you start this one for us.
What happened for Arizona was a fluke, and I think the Rams are a better team on paper. I'm going with the Rams.
Yes, as you said, Christine, great rain by Arizona last week. I know the Rams are banged up right now, but the Rams, they are a better team. They're favored by 3.5 on the road. I'm taking the Rams in the points, so let's see what the Rams can do. I'm going with the Rams.
This is my upset special. It's going to be a close one, but I'm picking the Cardinals, for the reasons that you guys just said. Yeah,
you believe the Afro Kyler Murray?
Well, look, I think the Rams are a little bit banged up. That defense, it's okay, but it's kind of opportunistic too. So I think this could be the key for Kyler Murray. I think they want to feel like that win against Las Vegas wasn't a fluke. So I think it's gonna be a close one, but I think the Cardinals will just pull it off. Only because I think they're at home. That's why I'm picking them. Another 3:25 game on Fox. You got the Falcons and the Seahawks. I'll start this one, I guess. It's gonna be a close one. It's gonna be one of those ugly games. I think Atlanta was right there in both the games they played. Seahawks. I know they're gonna be smarter from that loss to San Fran. I'll pick the Seahawks. I think Gino has a bounce back game.
Gosh, this is a toilet bowl for me, you know. But I am gonna pick Seattle for the exact reasons that you said, Lakeena.
Seattle's favored by 1 point. That means it's at a pick 'em. The over/under total is 42. I'm going with the Falcons just because.
Yeah, come on.
I think you're just doing it just to kind of
Right.
just be a pain.
Oh, don't be a hater.
Packer. I think this is going to be the game that a lot of us here are going to be watching, both here and I think where you are, Christine. I think the Packers and the Bucks. This should be a fun one with these two
America's
teams.
game of the week.
Exactly. So you're going to have Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, Aaron Andrews, and of course Tom Rinaldi on the call there for Fox. So, Jesus. So you start this one. This is a kind of.
This will be the last time. This will be the last time we'll see Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady in the regular season. Of course, we'll get to see him one more time if they meet up in the playoffs. But as far as this game is concerned, the Packers, they should be able to run the ball, even though Tampa's defense is much better than the Bears. For Tampa, I need to see them get their offense going, in particular the passing game. Mike Evans probably won't play because he did something stupid last week trying to start a brawl. And Tampa's at home. They usually play Green Bay tough at home. So Tom Brady, if he has something left, we want to see it. So I'm going with the Buccaneers. And the spread is Buccaneers by a point. So it's basically had to pick them.
Boy. Yeah, I don't like this, but I'm going with the Packers. And it's because, look, Evans is officially suspended for this game. It's only one game, and this is it. But the Bucks on the flip side still had a great win after all of that drama. I almost really don't want to pick the Packers because I don't think they really, besides Aaron Rodgers' arm, I don't think the Packers did really anything that impressive, especially now that Devontae Adams is not with them anymore. I just didn't see anything that was like, wow, that was really good. You know what I mean? But again, it's a pick'em situation, so I'm picking the Packers, unfortunately.
Yeah, breaking news, guys. I'm watching ESPN right now. This just in with Max Kellerman. Sam Acho, one-time Chicago Bear. He also agrees with Christine. He's picking the Lions over the Vikings.
I mean, look, will it be a big surprise if that were the case? I mean, I don't think anybody would be shocked by that if the Lions pull off that upset. And I think wouldn't be upset either. So we'll see. Now back to this game. I guess I'll pick the Bucks just because they're at home. It's going to be close, but like I said, Rodgers might throw for 4 touchdowns. He might have his breakout game of the season. So who knows? 49ers and Broncos. A Sunday night game should be a fun one on NBC. You know what? I don't know how they're going to feel about the altitude, but it really shouldn't be that big of a factor. It's going to be close, but I'm picking San Fran just because I don't trust the Broncos and what they're doing. I really don't.
I'm going with the 49ers as well, and they're favored by 1.5 points.
You know, as Coach Kyle of the 49ers say, Jimmy G, he still is a good player, and he's still handsome. Looks good, still's handsome. I highly agree with that. And I think he looks great too. You know, I think it's unfortunate what happened to Trey Lance and the way that his season had to go down like that. But there's a reason why they kept Jimmy G on, you know, and I think this is in a weird way how it was supposed to happen to have Jimmy G come back like this. And look, I think Denver's still a good team. I just think that Nathaniel Hackett doesn't know what the heck he's doing, especially after last week when they're calling down the shot clock, 10, 9, whatever the Bronco fans were doing. But I am going to pick the 49ers here.
Should be a fun one on Sunday night. And also, too, should be a good one here on Monday. Who would have thought? That'll be on ESPN, ABC, ESPN2, and ESPN Deportes. You got old NFC East rivals battling it out, Cowboys and Giants. Sid, you start this one.
I can't believe I'm about to let these words kind of come out of my mouth. And they're going to play the Bears next week. You're going to watch the soon-to-be 3-0 Giants beat the injured Dallas Cowboys. Oh, boy. And you know I don't like Daniel Jones at quarterback, but that's a whole nother issue. The Giants are favored by 1 point. I know Dallas got lucky last week because Cincinnati, they were just that much worse. The Giants, they're doing what they're supposed to do being two bad teams. Unfortunately, Dak is not going to play, but I think that's going to be a major factor in why the Giants are going to win. And of course, the Giants are at home.
I'm going to pick the Giants too. Exactly what you said. The injuries are stacked against Dallas right now. Dak isn't playing this week. It's a tough week to be a Cowboy right now. So Giants, here you go.
Yeah, I'm picking the Giants too. I'll drink the Kool-Aid, and we're gonna be, the Bears are gonna be facing the 3-0 Giants. It looks like next week. So oh, good grief. That'll be a fun one there. With Joe and Troy and Lisa Salters out there, calling the action there from New Jersey. Now, of course, last but not least, you got the Texans and the Bears on CBS, and I believe Andrew Kellon and James Lofton will be calling this game. I believe for CBS, if I'm not mistaken. They're literally a mirror images of each other, so it's going to be very interesting to see opportunistic, with the defense and such. I'll pick the Bears, but I'm not confident. They're going to be right near the bottom for me in the confidence pick, so it'll be close, but I think the Bears pull it out barely, if that makes sense.
Barely. Yeah, the Bears are currently 3-point favorites at home. Like you said, Lakeena, this is picking the worst of two evils. The Texas offense looks worse than the Bears, and the Bears have the quote-unquote better personnel because of some of their names. I'm going with the Bears. They should be able to win this one, but it's not going to be easy.
No, you're right. It's not going to be easy. And, this is a little homecoming for Lovey, he's back in Chicago. I don't know how warm of a welcome Santa's going to get, but time will tell for that.
Oh, gosh.
But like I said, when we were first picking, when we started the season, I originally picked the 49ers to win over the Bears. But I did say I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears did win that game. And that was probably one of the few games I expected them to win. Same for this one in Houston. I kind of expect the Bears to win this one just because they are one and the same team. So because of it's just going to be an ugly game to watch. It is what it is. And I hope there are going to be a lot of improvements being shown after Sunday night's game. So Bears, I'm picking you once again.
Good, yeah. This could be one of those real. I know our buddy Chance Johnson had 24-21. I don't even think it's going to be that much. It might be one of those 12-9, 10-7 kind of deals. So I don't know, but it'll be something. I think. Well, I apologize to the guys that are going to be calling this game. I firmly apologize to them in advance.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew and James. You're going to be. This might be a little bit of a stinker here, but that's a whole different situation. And those are our picks for NFL Week 3. Listen to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Lakeena McGee, Sydney Brown, our girl KXRB's Christine Manika joining us again as she usually does for our weekly picks here. Should we have the taps music for the White Sox, Christine? What the heck happened in their series against the Guardians?
The Guardians are one sneaky team. You know that nobody saw this coming from them, especially with the goofy name change. Who would have thunk that this is where we are today? I think the White Sox should just finish the season as strong as they can at this point and start thinking about next season, especially when it comes to a general manager now. We got to start thinking, not the coach. We got to start thinking, not La Russa anymore. I don't think La Russa should come back per se. I think the Sox played better when he wasn't around for whatever reason, but Yeah, I think it's time to get a new guy on the bench, and I think La Russa is still going to be involved with an organization in some way, just not in the dugout. I don't think he can handle it anymore.
Yeah, we saw what the real White Sox were like early this week. Lance said after Wednesday's game, when you play like crap, and this is what you expect, crap results. And of course, the legendary Cleveland now Guardians radio announcer Tom Hamilton said it perfectly. The Cleveland Guardians fans like the way their team plays, like while the White Sox fans hate the way their team plays. He could have been more spot on. And so if you guys missed that tweet, I tweeted it out the other day. Lakeena, I said this before, and I'll say this again, especially to you, Christine. Dallas Keuchel, who's no longer there, and looks like it may be Tony La Russa will be moving on. Of course, he has one more year left on his contract, but those two guys I just mentioned, it's got to be more than those two guys that I do have to pay for what happened this year. Will it be General Manager Rick Hahn, who's a lot of people, including yours, surely thinking his head should be on the chopping block? If that's the case, who's going to be the next GM? And they got to make a couple of trades throughout this all season. You cannot run the same exact team back next year. The attitude stunk, the offensive philosophy until Miguel Cairo took over at the end of August was terrible. You cannot single your way into a championship. It doesn't work when you have a home run hitting team. It doesn't work.
It'll be interesting to see if they decide to, one of those guys that gets traded. We'll see, if Jose Abreu, do you kind of, sort of like cut your loss with him and try to get something for him?
Well, he's a free agent, so.
Well, yeah, and I think that do you try to re-sign him? Do you maybe there are a couple other guys that are out there that are, they're going to be up next year, or do you try to trade some pieces? A couple of those pieces from them. Do you let Abreu walk? Do you let a couple other guys walk? So. There's a lot of questions to ask here about the White Sox, this off season. So they're gonna have plenty of time to think about it in a couple of weeks. So I guess you'll have to wait and see. There, of course, some breaking news here. Roquan Smith is questionable. He has not practiced all week, so it'll be interesting to see. He'll be able to play on Sunday against Houston. And the Bills, if you look at the Bills' injury report, it's pretty long. And a lot of guys, were either limited or didn't practice today. So. I know Michael Hyde's already been ruled out, but it really shouldn't be a big of a problem against the Dolphins. But again, we'll have to wait and see. I know Ed Oliver also has been ruled out too.
Okay. Yeah, I know Christine wanted to say something about the White Sox.
Sorry, Christine.
Sorry. Really quick. I wanted to go back what you were saying about finding the bad attitude in the locker room, Sid. In your opinion, who would that be? Would it be the coaches, or which player are you thinking of?
It's talking about the attitude in the clubhouse.
The clubhouse attitude.
I think it will be on the players, because you heard the quotes all year from Liam Hendricks and various other players. They thought they could just roll their gloves out there, expecting their opponents to back down from them. It could come from the coaches, but I think that this is on the players, because the late Kobe Bryant said this, and to a lesser extent, Michael Jordan said this too. You cannot go into a new season expected to do the same thing. Your opponents are going to get better. We know that you all have some new teammates on your team, and the White Sox, we love them because the change the game logo that they have, changing the game, having that swagger. But you got to put in the work. I get you got to be confident, but there's a difference between being confident and being delusional. And this team was delusional all year long. We said this, Lakeena, Minnesota wasn't going away. They didn't go away, but Cleveland was lurking in the background. Remember that May 9th game, the Josh Naylor game? That was the first sign, but we didn't notice at the time. At the All-Star break, the White Sox were in second place after beating Minnesota 3 out of 4 in a row.
Yep.
There were 3 games back at 500. Who was lurking around? Cleveland. While the White Sox were still wetting the bed, who was making that noise in August? Cleveland.
Well, I mean, look, excuse me. I warned everybody. I said, look, you guys are worried about Minnesota, but look, there's Cleveland kind of like lurking, waiting in the wings. So, and now look what's happening. So, just put us out of our misery, Guardians. Just, finish up. Don't have a letdown series against the Rangers. Just put us out of our misery and mine. But I think that I don't have to think about it anymore. All right, real quick. I know we're past the break, past it here, but what do y'all think about the whole situation with Ime Udoka and the Celtics? I mean, he got suspended the full season, and then now there's rumors that that maybe that the relationship wasn't really consensual, that he might have been stalked. It's just so many things that are going on right now in that whole situation. Christy, I know you have a lot to say about this.
Well, it's with the Celtics organization, even if it was consensual, they're still not allowed to have any sort of relationships like within the organization, which is understandable because business is business. They almost went all the way last year, so I can understand that for sure. It seems like this all happened just because the relationship ended and one party got a little bit more bitter than the other party, if that kind of makes sense. And the messed up thing is he's engaged, I believe, to not Nia Long.
Yep, and they have a child together too.
Yeah, so it's I don't know what's going on there, but clearly you feel bad for Nia, first of all, for going through something like this in a public eye when she has done a lot of movies, a lot of Tyler Perry movies, but you really don't see her name out in the public eye like this, if that makes sense. So I don't know what the right answer is. Do I think it should have been a whole year suspension? I'm not sure because you're only suspending him for a year, but then to have him come back in 23, 24, how are the players going to react to that? You know, they're used to this one guy, the interim coach, and then they go back to this guy. It's kind of it's confusing from a boss employee perspective. You know, the basketball players, their boss is their coach. So I don't know. It's just kind of going to be an interesting dynamic for the next couple of years for them.
Yeah, real quickly, Keena, we talked about this before you went on there. If this is since he's suspended for a year as of this broadcast, it must have, like I said, we don't know the details yet. I'll repeat again, we don't know the full details yet. He must have really had to do something serious for him to get a year suspension. If that's the case, he can quietly resign, keep his name out of the spotlight. Talking about Udoka, keep his name out of the spotlight for next season. Then the season after that, he'll do the whole apologizing PR thing, and that's how he's going to get back into coaching. He's not going to coach the Celtics again. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, you might go to like therapy or something, you know, maybe go to like, you know, some type of treatment or whatever, just kind of like save face and such. I mean, I'm sure all this stuff will probably come out at some point. I know people are fishing for like the woman's name. I mean, look, they're going to a whole different territory here. Like, I don't look, we're not, you know, lawyers. We're not like, you know, HR people, you know, we're not going to pretend to play one here on this show. But I just think that, you know, the whole thing just seems sort of weird. And like you said, Christine, I mean, I can understand why. And it's not just, I'm sure there are other teams that have similar rules where organizations, you know, in general have similar rules where, look, no franternizing or anything like that for this type of situation, just to avoid these type of situations. So I don't think we've heard the last of this, and I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to cut his losses and try to work on his family and whatever. Now, the rumors that made that he and Nehemiah have already broken up before this happened, so there's still so many things that are out there. So much speculation is just, you know, a little crazy, but you know, but look, let's stay on a happier note. Of course, you know, the Bulls will be getting ready to media day for the Bulls is next week. Also, to the Blackhawks, they're having their media day right now. Our buddy Chris Foster's, you know, check out his social media. You know, he can take his media pictures and such. So really cool. You know, look, you know, the Sox and the Cubs are like they're done, but the Blackhawks, we're not going to expect too much from them, but the Bulls. Looks like they might, you know, be, you know, hopefully, you know, well, Lonzo, that whole situation, but
yeah, he's gonna have his surgery next week, and hopefully he'll return by January 1st of 2023. If that happens, the Bulls will be a better team. We saw it last year when he was healthy. The Bulls were a much better team because he made that offense go.
Christine, got anything to add?
Yeah, you know, I expect another good season from the Bulls. I think now they're getting the mechanics underway, and hopefully with Ball, like you said, he'll be back and ready to go for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, on a happier note, we'll stop right there. Happy belated birthday to your guy, Chris. Chris, you know, he celebrated his birthday yesterday.
Thank you.
So,
yeah. We're going out for his birthday tonight, and I don't think he's listening right now, so I can say this. He doesn't know that it's a surprise party for him that's happening tonight.
Any more surprises?
Yeah, many more surprises. So hopefully it will all go well.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So, on a see, we're on a happy note. So with that said,
Yes.
follow me at Keena to be on the Twitter and at Keena is going to be on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Christine, where can the lovely people follow you?
They can follow me at _KXRB.
All right, folks, it's fall out there, so get those sweaters and jackets and hoodies, ready for you. Enjoy all the games. Got some great matchups this week. Also, make sure you check out Roger Federer's last match. That'll be on Tennis Channel. I think it's going to be streamed on other places as well, so make sure you guys check that out as well. So, enjoy all the games. Busy weekend in sports. So, for Sid and Christine, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago, and we'll see you Monday.
Dog Bears, holla!